dear friends, fellow MEPs, dear Rainis, dear colleagues, dear researchers. It's really a great pleasure to have you all here for this event, which is devoted, to my mind, to a very important topic, to the use of the AI in debunking disinformation and fighting disinformation. And it is really a great pleasure for me to present this group of researchers who will be talking about their project. But at the very beginning, let me say a couple of words about the relevance of this event. I mean, we are dealing right now with a really disruptive technology, which is in many ways to be compared with nuclear energy, meaning that it can be made useful only if it's carefully regulated. And I think with the incoming revolution of the AI, we are experiencing a very similar experience with a disruptive technology which has to be regulated. And right now we are living in the middle of a huge geopolitical confrontation. And that's why also the European Parliament has been following and has been supporting our attempts to help Ukraine to fight Russian full-scale invasion, and also on larger scale the authoritarian regimes that have been attempting to disrupt our way of life and our values. And for the EU, in order to remain truthful to our values, we have to be able to defend them also on the level of state-of-the-art technologies. And that's why I think this is really an important topic to deal with, the use of AI in preventing and fighting disinformation. Which is also a part of, if you want, larger scale European initiative. I'm talking about the European Democracy Action Plan, with those elements that are constantly on the agenda of European institutions, like promoting true and fair elections, strengthening media freedom, and countering disinformation. And I think that the project AR for Debunk, which is going to be presented today, is really a good example where we should move in order to really be able to use state-of-the-art technologies to stay truthful to our values. And this project, as far as I understand, has already started almost 2 years ago, and our researchers have already first results to present and to discuss. And that's why, without much further ado, I would like to pass the button of moderation to Professor Inna Šteinbuka, who is a leading researcher in this project. But right now, this is really a great pleasure for me to introduce Professor Inna Šteinbuka.
Thank you very much Professor Ivars Ijabs is not just a member of the parliament, he is our dear colleague, professor at the same university where I'm from. And actually, thanks to him, we are here in the European Parliament, and we are very proud for being able to present very first result of our research. The research started actually 1.5 years ago. Even we don't have even 2 years, and we still have a long way to go. But I must say that our purpose is not just to introduce our research, our purposes, our task, and part of our team, but also to have your advice about how to remain relevant, because the research, and not only research, I mean technology is progressing very fast, talking about artificial intelligence, about digitalization, about everything. And also geopolitical situation is changing all the time. So how to remain relevant after, 4 years of research. Well, 1.5 years, as I said, is already over, but we still have a way to go. And that's why whatever your advice we will have today is very much appreciated. Just a couple of words about our project. We have 8 different countries and 14 team members from around the Europe. Some of us are from eastern part of Europe, including Latvia, but there are also researchers which are still not the member of European Union, like Ukraine, but we have also our partners from Bulgaria, and Bulgaria is now on its way to Eurozone, which is also very important. Okay, so, but we have also partners from Brussels, from Ireland, from Greece, from Italy, from Spain. So we really have a big team, international team. Now, what is even more important, it's not our geographical composition, but a division of work, because some of our members represent social science, like my Professor Zaneta Ozolina, who is sitting on my right hand. And some of them represent exactly technical and AI part, like my colleague from the left side. I will introduce everybody a little bit later. Look, and it is also very challenging to combine our social and political science knowledge with a technical expertise and to make our research a really integrated, interdisciplinary. So it's a big challenge, and we're still working on it, but we are making quite a good progress. Now, Ivar so already said about importance of debunking disinformation with artificial intelligence tools, and also without artificial intelligence tools based on, our own intelligence. And just to, everybody knows about threat of disinformation, information manipulation, foreign interference, and so on. I wouldn't like to be, just abstract. I will give you a couple of examples. One of disinformation and its impact on the people's mind. And one of my example comes from yesterday. I came to the airport by taxi, and the taxi driver told me, "Where are you going to?" I said, "To Brussels." "I think you are going to the European Parliament." I said, "How did you guess?" "Well, but generally talking about Europe, they are beggars. They don't have anything. The wealth of the Europe came from colonies. So they don't have any colonies anymore. That's why they are beggars and they are just arrogant." So this is a statement. And I don't think that this person, he was a Russian speaker driver. I didn't want to argue because I was on the way to airport. I wanted to come safe. But anyhow, with or without artificial intelligence, I don't think that his, trust in the Russian propaganda narrative will be, will be different. Okay. Now another example, which actually is not only about Russian speakers but also Latvian speakers, some of them. Look, I'm economist by training, and I'm also chair of the Fiscal Discipline Council. I'm dealing with the budget in Latvia, most of all. Okay, and couple of different people said me, "Look, Latvia is a very poor country." It's another myth. Okay, very poor country, and Latvian budget comes from European Commission. I said, "How it is possible?" "From the European budget. European budget is subsidizing the Latvian budget." I said, "No." "How no? And where does the money come from?" I said, "From taxes." "And where taxes come from?" "From industrial production, from goods, services. But Latvia doesn't produce anything. Latvia is a very poor country. Industry has been destroyed long ago. We don't have anything." Okay, and whatever I say with a fact, based on evidence, based on statistics, they do not believe me. You see, but maybe some of them people who are totally disoriented by these narratives. Maybe some of them can check by using artificial intelligence, so it's not that bad. So by giving this example, I just wanted to illustrate that disinformation is not something very abstract. Every day, actually, I'm dealing with the people, also some students, different people of our society, which are totally disoriented by disinformation. And having said this, I would like to switch to our roundtable discussion. I will introduce everybody in the sequence where I will give the word. And actually, one of our panel discussants is not from the research. Andris Kuznieks is acting head of the European Commission representation in Latvia. We have been working with Andris many years. He used to be my deputy when I was working for the Commission, and I hope he will be head of the representation. I very much hope, touch wood, in the nearest future. Well, but Andris is really very well equipped to answer my first question. And my first question is, what are the European Commission priorities and upcoming policies in tackling disinformation?
Many thanks, Inna, and many thanks, Professor Šteinbuka, for the introduction. I should admit I'm also part of the Latvia University team because I'm active lecturer, actually. I'm lecturing one course on European Union priorities to master's students. But that's a rather short-term job. So I'm part of the university as well, and I'm a graduate of university as well. Well, I mean, when we speak about artificial intelligence and disinformation, and maybe I'll put it a bit in a broader perspective also in relation to the project that is in a way presenting to the audience its, let's say, findings and its work, is that I think when we add artificial intelligence to disinformation, it's like disinformation on steroids, because that helps boosting disinformation in ways those who are working against us can do it much more effectively. And there is a joke, but actually I was hearing it last week from our well, he's also a great expert on disinformation, Jan Kragt, who is head of NATO Stratcom, and he was telling that very soon each of us will have AI assistant. And now I asked ChatGPT, what is the latest development? And ChatGPT is answering, yes, we will very soon launch personal assistant. What does it mean? If we are audience who can pay for it, will of course use, let's say, white products, but I think there will be many who will use products of our adversaries. And what does it mean? It means that the reach towards people, including with disinformation, will be greater. And of course, the artificial intelligence is part of our daily lives, especially the generative AI. And then the question is, indeed, what the Commission is doing. Of course, when it comes to regulation, and of course, we in the European Union are very often criticized for quite a lot of regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence, to basically social media platforms. But I think we do it for the sake of security of our citizens, because those norms that are introduced are to check the information integrity, to basically inspect the big platforms that their algorithms, which, by the way, use, I don't know what's the exact figure now, but I've been told that up to 30 or even 40% of algorithms are already driven by artificial intelligence. So the way what is created, the content, where again we have part of disinformation to create fake videos, to create fake voice, not speaking about pictures, then it's boosted through artificial intelligence. So it's a big challenge. So in a way, I think when we speak about the future, probably it's already today that's happening. And when we speak about today and artificial intelligence, that's maybe yesterday. So I think we have to keep up there. And what the Commission is doing, apart from those legal acts that most likely you all know, is that we, I think, have to work together also on this supply side, which means that our artificial intelligence has to be up to date, because otherwise, if we lose to our adversaries in terms of technologies, then there is no sense of fighting it, because it will be losing. So that's why the Commission has proposed the AI Continent Action Plan a few months ago. So basically, it's to pool all the resources that are linked to develop these artificial intelligence factories and gigafactories that can also, I think, help in our work when it comes to disinformation. And on the disinformation topics, like, for example, because we have a colleague also from the Commission who works in this disinformation network team or strategic communication in the Commission, we gather every week what are the main myths that are in each member state. So what we have, actually, we still have vaccines. We have quite a lot of, well, those who are Latvians know, there is kind of hysteria against wind power. Different ones, starting that in a small zoo close to wind turbine that was installed. I don't remember the name of the small animal, but they all died because of wind turbines, you know. And that is actually promoted by some of political forces as well. And still, of course, on Ukraine, that all the help that is going to Ukraine is, you know, misused, etc. So a lot of this information, and imagine that if it's boosted by artificial intelligence, it's a great threat to all of us. So we have to work together. I stop here.
Well, absolutely, Andri. Many thanks for these first introductory words about Commission priorities and our priorities. And you are absolutely right. The fields of disinformation are so broad. But in our project, we are mainly dealing with the war in Ukraine. And the second big area is climate change. So we cover two big areas, but of course there are many, many more. And but you know, we have also to analyze to whom these messages are addressed. I mean, that's why I will raise my next question to Professor Žaneta Ozolina. Before raising the question, I would like to say that Professor Ozolina is a political scientist with huge experience, very well known, also in Brussels, also used to work in the European Commission. She is my dear colleague, and my question is, but who are the main target groups of disinformation in your opinion?
Thank you, Inna, for kind introduction. And indeed, when we started this project, we wanted to contribute something what hasn't been addressed significantly by researchers before. And we all know what disinformation is, where it comes from, what forms it takes. But who are the main target groups? And in order to identify the main target groups, we carried out 43 in-depth interviews with different groups of participants from different areas. And our initial aim was to identify which are the main target groups. And looking at what is happening in the disinformation domain, we identified 4 main target groups. And we called them target groups which are more exposed to disinformation, those who are direct primary target of disinformation actors. So these are policymakers, business community, particularly business community from the areas which are under the sanctions or which are strategically relevant for Russia and for China. Then public opinion makers, including journalists. And the fourth group, we wanted to look at Russian-speaking diaspora in Western countries, not initially dividing them into either Russians or Ukrainians, but just as a community which is using Russian language in their communication. But then, of course, we also wanted to make or identify a group of the most vulnerable target groups, those who are easy manipulated. It's like Inna mentioned taxi driver, for instance, which in political science rhetoric becomes something more just only taxi drivers. And we called the second group as the most vulnerable group. And looking at the most vulnerable groups, these are youth representatives, seniors, also people living in rural areas, different minorities, and individuals with low digital literacy. So, and here we have those two groups, but interviews we made mostly with those most exposed groups, and in total we collected 43 interviews. These were in-depth interviews with many questions and many findings, but I will just mention few of the main recommendations which those representatives mentioned during the focus group, and we will compose later on a policy brief, very short one, only on 4 pages, not 100. So, and when those policy briefs will be approved by the European Commission, they will be distributed very widely, and also members of the European Parliament definitely will get this deliverable of our project. So when it comes to policymakers, what challenges did they mention? They mentioned such as erosion of public trust, geopolitical tension, which contributes to spread of disinformation, also EU fragmentation risk, AI and deepfakes. Actually, policymakers were more concerned about deepfakes rather than other groups, and we know also in our country we had several examples where politicians were actually misinfluenced by deepfakes, and also the concern about shifting strategic focus. So actually, policymakers also were mentioning what you, Andris, mentioned, that it's too much efforts directed towards debunking, while, for instance, rebunking is still not sufficiently addressed. What recommendations policymakers mentioned? Targeted debunking, and I think this is a very important recommendation, so to design interventions for specific demographic groups. So also debunking or rebunking or pre-bunking has to be specifically designed. So you cannot use the same message across different societal groups in Europe. Another one, civil society engagement, which sounds old-fashioned and too much of wear off, but the point is that this recommendation is mostly targeted at activities which could be implemented on community level. Again, Europe designed debunking, pre-bunking doesn't fit all countries. So therefore, here NGO sector is very important for very targeted, again, initiatives. Then different public education campaigns and also cybersecurity and media literacy. As far as business community is concerned, it was very interesting to monitor that actually business community is not too worried about this information. They are very well aware. They know how to react or not to react to that. But they actually were worried about blackmailing from other business entities, from fake news spread by their competitors. And what they mentioned, they also mentioned that those companies which work, as I mentioned, in energy sector, in ICT sector, they sometimes feel that there are attempts from malign actors to influence them. What they mentioned as main challenges, and challenge number one, which was mentioned by all interviewed business representatives, it's too much regulation on EU level. So on the one hand, we would like to regulate, but again, technology doesn't like to be too much regulated. Otherwise, you stop advancement in technological sector. Trust deficit and also ineffective fact-checking. Actually, business community mentioned this false fact-checking experience as one of challenges. Recommendations: digital skill development, cross-sector collaboration. It was actually mentioned by very many respondents. Public confidence building, and this public confidence building is not only confidence in politics, but confidence in technology as well. Because sometimes IT companies actually also contribute to lack of trust in collaboration and also use of digital tools. Support for journalism, and actually this is one of the big topics because journalism today suffers also transformation and resources are very scarce, and it has impact on the quality of the produced materials. And another topic which I also found very interesting, it's necessary to expand safety culture in enterprises because actually the whole economic sector today is digitalized and not in safety regulations. Everywhere you can find measures which are introduced to counter cyber attacks. So therefore, this is also an important point. About public opinion leaders, as a challenge, they mentioned adaptive disinformation tactics, which are actually developing at rapid pace, resource constraints, insufficient social integration, what is happening, by the way, in our project, and what are recommendations. Above of what was said before, they put child-focused media literacy. They sometimes start teaching too late. It has to be done at very early stage. Then also expert engagement more and more, and different pre-banking campaigns. And here I come to the fourth group, Russian-speaking diaspora, and it is a very interesting topic, and if you would be interested to dig in, I could come back to that during our Q&A session. But the main finding is that Russian-speaking community in European countries is very diverse, and it cannot be treated with the same policy measures. You cannot accept sometimes this message, which is dominating also in European documents, that those who left countries after the start of war, they are all form unified community. It's not true. It's very diverse situation. Another point, also regarding Ukrainians who as war refugees settled in our countries, they are also very different. And if you take, for instance, a woman from countryside, from rural area, not being fluent in English language, she is deprived from information sources on what is happening. So therefore, at one point, she can become a very easy target of Russian disinformation. And therefore, what among different recommendations, what they mentioned support to independent multilingual media, where they can get information in different languages, partner with diaspora NGOs who are operating here in Europe, special media literacy trainings for refugees in different countries, and also cybersecurity awareness, because again, having in mind that they are refugees and living in very specific circumstances, it's very important also to proceed with such kind of a training. And I will stop here. Of course, I would like to share more and more, but time is not allowing that, and let's come back with the questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Žaneta. And well, I think that your findings will also lead our technical team trying to adjust AI tools to different target groups. I'm frankly speaking not sure it is possible, but at least we can try, and maybe today some of our members will meet this my concern. But now I will pass the floor to another researcher, to Pascaline Gaborit. She is a doctor in PhD in political science, researcher, consultant, expert, trainer. She is the founder of the think tank, published books, articles on disinformation, AI, resilience, democracy, and many more. Okay, Pascaline, according to stakeholders and interviews, what are the best possible response to disinformation in your mind?
Thank you very much, Inna, and thank you for the introduction. To come back to the really basics, disinformation can start very small with a simple post that is manipulated images or headlines to provoke outrage. And the person posts it, and a friend shares it, and then the community absorbs it. And soon it spreads, not only across platforms, but across minds. And before we can even question its truth, it is already shaping decisions, altering opinions, and creating divisions in societies. And as we have discussed with Žaneta, it is complex. There are different target groups. There are not unified communities. So what is available today, what is possible with the technology can create a lot of problems and dangers. And this is why our project is trying to develop a protection, a shield against disinformation and to understand why it can really fracture trust and steal our ability to distinguish the reality from fiction. So what we did in our project, and as Žaneta has explained a little bit already, we have interviewed people, respondents. We have created an online survey where we have received answers from 371 people in different countries covered by the partnership. And there, our findings are that there is awareness. There is awareness because the respondents have confided that they, first of all, consume their news from the internet. And we know that there are like synthetic media rising. There are a lot of fact checkers, but there are a lot of also disinformation going on, and also social media. I think from the European poll, 42% of the youth nowadays is consuming their news on TikTok and YouTube and on social media. And what they also explained is that the most disinformation that they had identified was also on social media. And they had identified it as a really worrying information. Next slide. And yes. Thank you. So they expressed the worries. Almost all the respondents have said that they believe that fake news has a heavy impact on society. So there is awareness. And then in the measures that they think are the most effective in combating fake news, they all mentioned for 36% that media literacy and greater education would be the first let's say, way to tackle disinformation. But what are we talking about with this media literacy? Because that's also an important topic, but what is behind it? Of course, that's fact-checking, that's double-checking information, having critical spirit to what's happening, but it's also understanding, for instance, what are the business models of the social media? How do algorithms work? How can they target you as an individual? How can these algorithms influence your decisions? And how more and more will you be the target of micro-targeted algorithms and information? So this digital literacy is not one-fold. It's not only being at school and developing a kind of critical spirit and saying, okay, you can find fabricated videos, but it's going further than that to understand what the technologies bring and how do they work, how are they trained, and how can the individual protect itself. And then there are, of course, the regulations. And there I fully agree with Žaneta has said, the regulations in our interviews, especially about the signatories of the Code of Practice and the Code of Conduct against disinformation, they experienced that it was a very interesting process, but not an easy one, because, of course, it's bringing additional constraints and reporting questions. And that being said, they mentioned that this regulation was important and that it brought also a lot of consultation between the stakeholders. Finally, technological solutions were mentioned as an important tool. Also, policy exchange, as well as more cooperation between institutions, meaning like the media, the decision makers, the technology developers, and that's also a little bit the idea of our project.
Thank you very much, Pascaline. I fully agree with you that basically education and development of critical thinking from the very young, age is one of the absolutely necessary tools in fighting disinformation. And then it comes artificial intelligence and whatsoever. But because we all at this table more or less are related to higher education, I think that we should keep it in mind, and also maybe in our project to develop some specific advice to how this education should be adjusted to the new world. Having said this, I would like to pass the floor to Jan Kragt. Jan is innovator. He is from institution which called Innovative Power, and he has extensive experience in developing socially impactful innovations. So innovation is a key word. His work bridges technologies and societal needs. Jan is committed to drive meaningful change and promote sustainable innovation across various sectors. And now Jan is with us, and please, floor is yours. My question. My question is, what is the most effective strategy in the fight against disinformation in your mind, please?
Thank you very much, Inna. And thank you very much for the important question. In our view, the most effective strategy, even in the long run, is to take a truly generational approach. That means not just focusing on today's adults or older citizens, but investing in the resilience of young people. You might say, why? Because they are not just the most active users of online platforms, but also they are the European citizens of the future. If we want to build a more informed and critically minded society, we have to start there, early and meaningfully. But rather than me explaining how we should do that, maybe it's the best to let them speak for themselves. Please do. I give the floor to them.
Wow, Anita, this is actually the European Parliament, and we're about to address them. Let's go.
Hello, Parliament.
Come on, don't be shy. We're here because they're worried about us, right?
Oh, right. Tom, they think we believe everything we see in the news.
Prof, no way. Although my parents think differently.
Yes, indeed. Like many of you, I'm seriously worried.
Exactly. Kids get all their information from TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And there's a lot of misinformation on those platforms.
So how do we solve that? Wait, maybe I should ask my father?
Ah, my boy. How nice that I could be here too.
Oh my. Speaking to the European Parliament? That was on my bucket list. Thank you so much.
But I do have a solution to your problem. Back in the day, we didn't have the internet. We learned everything at school.
That's actually not a bad idea. It should be mandatory. Can't you arrange that here in the European Parliament?
I mean, children should learn how to deal with fake news. Yeah, not a bad idea at all, huh? And they certainly wouldn't be able to escape.
Oh no, not more boring classes.
You know what? If we could teach those classes ourselves, it would already make a huge difference.
We are fun, playful, and engaging.
And smart and incredibly good looking.
As you can see, disinformation doesn't affect just one group. It's something we all face across the generations. But if we want to break the cycle, we need to start with youngsters and equip them with the right tools and mindset. So we asked ourselves, how do we actually reach people, young people, in a way that works? It's not by lecturing. It's not by handing them fact-check reports, but by offering them content that speaks their language. Visual, narrative, playful, and integrated into their daily learning. That's why we choose to work with educational comics and interactive educational games. Because these are formats that young people already engage with and love. And we don't just make something fun, we build full educational packages with teaching methods and school integration. And then you might ask, does that work? Yes. And we know that because it's not new to us. We've done that for a long time. Our foundation has been developing educational comics and educational digital learning tools for many years. And today, all 9,000 schools in the Netherlands and a growing number in Belgium use our materials to support learning about history, democracy, and media literacy. But for this project, we wanted to take it one step further. So we used AI to bring our comic characters to life, just like you saw in the animation. We use these characters to bring our message to the youth, not only with educational comic books, but also with an educational game. This empowers us to design vibrant, interactive learning experiences that come alive across multiple platforms, capturing young people's imagination and connecting directly with their world. And we don't stop there. In addition to youth education, we are also developing in this project a mobile app and browser plugin to support parents and grandparents too. Together, this creates a multi-layered approach. We reach children through schools. We reach adults and elderly through technology in order to reach the best antidote to disinformation. That is education, conversation, and critical thinking across all ages. But I'll now hand over to my colleague who will tell you more about all the technical tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. It was very entertaining, and I hope that final users, I mean kids, and well, they will enjoy your games. Well, our games, I mean our common, which will be one of the outputs of our project. And you already passed the floor to Kevin because people can ask, and where is artificial intelligence on all your debates? So let me just introduce Kevin El Haddad. He is senior researcher at the University of UMONS, and with over 10 years of experience in research, and his research focus include conversational AI and speech processing. Alongside his academic work, he also heads research and development department in, well, at Diabolacom. I don't know what does it mean, Diabolacom, but you're a big boss there, with a goal to enhance customer interactions using AI. The question, how robust is our approach to the rapid evolution of AI and generative AI specifically?
Right. So before starting with our approach, I'd like to explain quickly what's being done in the state of the art currently in this topic. Most systems that we've ran through so far, what they do usually in this field is that you give a data, whatever type of data that is, text, image, audio, and it will take a decision for you and give you a score, whether it's disinformation or not, right? And the user is expected to trust it and follow the decision. Instead of doing this, our approach is to build a set of toolkit, as you can see in the lower part of this schematic, the big purple square, that will allow the user to find information and take the decision for themselves. For example, the first module, which is a similarity search, will allow a user to accurately find similar news to a reference and return, for example, 10 related news, some opposing and some supporting. The two others are respectively deepfake detection, which will allow to give an estimation whether the news was generated by AI or not. And the third one will give a kind of score that will tell you, given an image and a corresponding text, whether they match or not. So as you can see, it doesn't really take a decision, it just helps people take a decision. The second approach we're taking is that we're trying to, we're focusing on the user-computer interaction part. That means, okay, that's fine to have models like this, but if they're not used, they don't have any meaning, right? So we're trying to explore the best interface that allows, that will boost the use of our tools, basically. And we try also to keep the user in the loop of the entire system by allowing them to contributing to our knowledge base, by leveraging the amount of users that we might have to increase the resilience of our tool. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the current state of the art focuses on one system, giving one decision that it takes by itself. And I didn't mention the main problem with that that we face is it's called generalization in AI terms. What that means is if the system, whatever it is trained, let's say, on data coming from 2005, they are very, very likely to fail with data coming from 2025 because it only knows what it was trained with, right? And so it generalizes badly. Same thing if it was trained on topics like climate change, and we try to use it for topics on COVID, for example. And this approach that we have allows us to use models that are more resilient to that, and keeping human in the loop, the user in the loop, allows us to tackle this problem as well. So here's a bit overview of what we're doing and how we're tackling the problem of robustness that we have with our systems.
Well, Kevin, actually you have answered the question, how are we technically approaching the problem of countering disinformation, right?
Yes.
But I just wanted, now we are coming to the second round when we make the same thing but in an opposite direction. That's why I continue. First of all, what do you think about this rapid evolution of AI and being relevant? This is first. And second, today we heard about these target groups. Do you think that your approach will help to fine-tune these tools to different target groups? Yeah.
So the idea here is, as we said, the current approaches that take their own decision by giving a score at the end, the only way to make them, to update them, is to retrain them with new data. With the current evolution of AI, the systems, the models that we're using become more and more complex. So they're bigger and they need more data. That means they're more costly when we need to train them with new data. Not only they're more costly, it will be more complicated to gather the data we need to train the system. The models we're trying to work with are actually a lot smaller, or can be a lot smaller, and so they require a lot less resources to do that. That means for any type of application, it will be easier to deal with these types of models than it would be with bigger models that try to take a difficult decision based on vague data. Another point is here, the architecture, the whole infrastructure we're using to build our system, it was thought in a way to be as flexible as possible, allowing us to modify the modules if we need to without touching the rest of the architecture. So what I mean by architecture is you have the interfaces that the users see and use, and you have the engines, for example, behind it, the models. We build the whole thing in a way that you can remove a model, put another, without having to touch the rest, basically. Or we're currently building. we're advancing very well, but it's not finished yet, but that's our goal. That allows us to be flexible enough to, in case, and that will happen, state-of-the-art models arrive that make our models use obsolete. That gives us we'd be flexible enough to modify our models so that we stay relevant when it comes to countering disinformation.
Well, thank you very much. I really hope that we will stay relevant also in a couple of years from now. But now, now my task is easier. I have not to introduce you, already done this, but still continuing this issue of being up to date, being relevant. My question to Jan, how can we ensure that education and information on how to deal with disinformation stays up to date?
Thank you, Inna, for this relevant and very forward-looking question, too. Indeed, in the rapidly evolving landscape of media and technology, staying up to date is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. In the AI for Debunk project, we have taken concrete steps to ensure that the educational materials we develop will remain current and relevant even after the project officially ends. Our approach is twofold. First, we commit to updating all materials, including our educational comic book and its accompanying lesson package, whenever a new edition is printed or released. This means that every reprint offers an opportunity to reflect on new insights, technological developments, and emerging threats. Our content evolves as the world does, always staying relevant and up to date. Secondly, we pledge to continue offering these materials to school for at least 5 years after the conclusion of the project. This guarantees continuity, reach, and a lasting impact on the European educational landscape. But of course, it's not just about the materials. It's about how we engage young people with real-world issues. That's why we have chosen to include 2 powerful test cases in our current development. One focused on Ukraine, dealing with war-related disinformation, foreign interference, and emotional manipulation. And one on sustainability, exploring greenwashing, fake science, and misleading climate narratives. Mm-hmm. These themes are not abstract. They are concrete, urgent, and highly relevant for European youth. By embedding them into our educational comics, our educational games, and classroom discussions, we are not just teaching what disinformation is, we are showing how it works and why it matters. And if this approach proves successful, if we see that it resonates, informs, and empowers, then we truly believe it could serve as a powerful communication model for the European Union as a whole. But perhaps I should not be the one to convince you of that. Instead, let me give the floor one last time to our young characters, the ones we brought to life with EI, the ones who speak in the voice of Europe's future.
If you really follow through with this,
then we promise to bring this story to every school we can.
That would be such a relief. Finally, real attention for this in our schools.
It's what our kids truly need.
How heartening to see young people so passionate about education.
And you know what they say. Learn young, live wise.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having you also, but I don't say bye yet. And you already mentioned one of the danger, it is in disinformation climate change, and we know how many people already are thinking that it's just waste of money and it's just, some special reason to spend money for unuseful thing. And Pascaline, what is your opinion? Because you are also making research exactly on the dangers of climate disinformation.
Thank you, Inna. When we started the research, we had not realized how relevant and how important this topic of climate disinformation was, because at first it appears a little bit more fragmented and a little bit less orchestrated than the Russian-based propaganda about the war in Ukraine, for instance. But still, it's impactful. Why? Because uncertainty has been manufactured, doubt woven into the conversation, and it's turning urgency into skepticism and confusion. And I think if we have a quick look at the geopolitical picture and landscape, it's difficult to be optimistic. In the United States, we see an administration which has declared climate change as a hoax, and we see that it's decreasing the funding for climate-related research and solutions while promoting new fossil fuel investments and drilling. And at the other side of the spectrum, we have other countries like China, which want the world to believe that the problem only comes from the Western countries and that climate justice should be tackled first before we find solutions for climate. And here in Europe, we think that, okay, we are ahead, we are on track, we have the Green Deal, but still, in our research, we see that there is a lot of disinformation going on. First of all, we are not exempted from conspiracy theories. They are still there, and of course, they are a little bit restricted to a small % of the population, but still, it's there. But they are casting doubts about science, and they are also casting doubt about the solutions. So what we have seen in our case studies is, for instance, false claims that wind turbines are causing cancers. We've seen also a lot of disinformation going on the Green Deal. And what I would say is that there is also targeted disinformation about climate change. There is even coming from a certain part of the private sector orchestrated disinformation on certain solutions, for instance, research on pesticides or research on different solutions that could be harmful for them. So it's not only about greenwashing, it's also about real disinformation added to the misinformation. And this misinformation is really complicated even here in Europe because we receive a lot of contradictory information and messages. This means that on the solutions, there are, of course, different scientific analyses, different media views, which is really great in a pluralistic society, but it's creating a lot of confusion for the citizens, even for NGOs and for civil society. So I would say that these dangers on climate disinformation is really strong. And we need really to have more protection about this information, but also more science, more scientists, for instance, to evaluate the policies, the projects, and the solutions. More, let's say, information and easy to digest information for citizens. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And from climate change, we're switching to Ukraine because this is our also very big area of research. And my question is to Professor Ozolin, what are the key challenges related to disinformation about Ukraine?
Thank you, Inna. I think that there is almost no one here in this room, but also in European institutions and public at large, who would be questioning what is happening in Ukraine. So therefore, the assumption is that actually we have already the shield against this information, which is trying to manipulate with different messages, so-called special operations, and more and more and more. But the point is that the war in Ukraine highlighted weaknesses of Europeans. And I think that this is one of the lessons which has to be learned. It was 2018, and I was participating in another Horizon, at that time it was still FP7 project, which was focusing on multilingualism. Me with my colleague wrote an article which we actually titled as Weaponization of Language. And we had a lot of battles about this title, and linguists didn't want to agree that weapon can be weaponized. But it can, and still it is weaponized. Mm-hmm. So therefore, one of the lessons is just to keep eyes open, to think smart, to think ahead, and also to be confident about what we are doing. And sometimes we are being shy to express what is the real essence of the problem. We wanted to treat Yeltsin nicely, Gorbachev nicely, Putin nicely, and in the end, so we have war in Ukraine. So therefore, actually, Europeans has to be really more confident on their political decisions, on their political ambitions, and also to be proud of political project of European identity. So therefore, I really not using here academic language, but for political language, because we are in a big trouble. Actually, we are not living only in the environment which is dominated by disinformation, but we live in information space which is full of lies, and lies are accepted as truth. So therefore, it's really leadership of European project which is needed to say strong words against disinformation, and we scholars on our side will find tools how to manage this issue.
Absolutely, Žaneta. Thank you for this very straight to the point comments. I would like also to introduce you one more partner of our project from Bulgaria, but he's actually from Brussels, Mr. Georgi Gotev. And Georgi is a very big expert on media, and including media literacy. And what do you think, George, about the role of media in combating in the banking disinformation, or at least not to disseminate disinformation?
Thank you, Inna. I like the humor in your question. I represent the Bulgarian media. Actually, in the architecture of the project, AI for the Bank, there are two media, one from Ukraine and one from Bulgaria. I think the reason is that Ukraine is targeted by Russia in terms of fake news, disinformation, and the same happens in Bulgaria. Also, in Bulgaria, there are very little safeguards. We have discovered dozens of websites churning fake news around the clock. And one of the tasks of my team was to analyze those fake news for the purpose of machine learning. So according to an agreed template, we analyzed each one of those fake news so that artificial intelligence would, better analyze, better perform its task. But we have found amazing things, and also a lot of time elapsed since the beginning of the project. In the beginning, we were like the heroes, we were the fact checkers, debunking the fake news and so on. But the world changed, and some consider us now the enemies. Who are you to debunk you are the censor. Who allows you to decide what is true and what is not? One of the members of my team was threatened by the representative of an embassy, which is part of, I will not name the country, but it's part of what we call the Western world, for the work she was doing in fact-checking. That's because of the situation which is evolving, where you have presidents churning fake news, where this should not be the case. But also in Bulgaria, we have members of the Academy of Sciences who churn fake news regarding climate change, and they deal precisely with this topic. And we also have this phenomenon that some people just want to believe in fake news. They create this narrative, and also the algorithms of platforms, they make them live in such artificial words. If somebody wants to believe that the Earth is flat, What can you do to change his mind? If somebody wants to believe that Elvis is still alive, what can you do? There are plenty of communities like this, and I don't think that even the best plugin or the best AI tool that we would develop will solve the question. Maybe what Jan said is very much true. We should start at school very early so that to minimize this risk. But the fact remains that we are, as we speak, in a project lasting several years, and it's difficult to imagine what the world will like toward the end of the project. And that requires from us, of course, to be very creative and to be very, adaptive. It's like the dinosaurs, they disappeared, but some smaller animals like the lizards are still around. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's very relevant. Now you see that even without our team, we have different opinions and doubts and concerns, but it doesn't stop our creatory mood. We are still very inspired, and very much hope that in the end of the project, the world will not disappear. We will be still there with our project and with our findings and with our recommendations. But just to finalize this roundtable discussion, I would like to give the floor to Andris again. And what do you think? What are your takeaways from this discussion, and maybe some recommendations?
Yeah, many thanks. I think indeed we are living in a very interesting time when we are challenged, first of all, by the content. That is to say that we are challenged by disinformation, and we care about those who are poor, let's say, recipients of this and how to prevent it. That's one. And the second is that we have technologies that are rapidly developing, and how we use them for our benefit. I think that's the big question, at least that's also to me, and where Europe can remain competitive in this. And then on this detection side, again, how we can use these technologies that they help us. And then the big question again is the big social media platforms that are not based in Europe, by the way, where we try to regulate them, to make them responsible for the content. And I think this complex of issues is a great challenge. But what we do from the Commission side is that, as an honest broker, we can provide some resources. Like, for example, there is now a competition ongoing with 5 million to help those who, not to help, but to select organizations that can help the EU to detect malicious campaigns, and also to help fact-checkers, because, of course, not we institutions can do it, like you in the projects and those who are on the ground, with the boots, can detect and help us in this difficult work. So this is my broad summary, maybe no solutions, but my view on discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Andris. Thank you, everybody. But I will now give the floor to our host, to Professor Ijabs and Ivar. I don't know how many times we still have for Q&A session.
Yep, thank you very much, Inna, and thank you all the presenters for this exciting presentation. Well, I have my own, of course, thoughts and remarks, but I would be happy really to give the floor to our participants, who are, to my mind, representing very diverse bunch of institutions, organizations, and political positions. So, Indra, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks to all the panelists as well. I work as a policy advisor here in Parliament on questions related to civil liberties, but also now with education and culture. And maybe building up on from what you just said about the potential future, I guess, solutions or projects that we could invest in to tackle this. I kind of wanted to zoom in on that because more than one of you talked about education and starting young and making sure that kids, I suppose, would have media literacy, and then we would have more public resilience, I suppose, to AI-driven disinformation and critical digital tools, I suppose. But at the same time, formal education and something that will be consistent will remain a member state competency, right? So my question would be, where do you see that EU can do something to address this, to contribute meaningfully? I mean, is it going to be cross-border collaboration? Is it going to be initiatives on their own right? Maybe projects like this one that you're presenting here today? More funding? Is it anything else? Because if we're going to start young, I mean, it's great to have an ad hoc project and see whether things work, but you have to convince member states then to pick it up and run with it. So, yeah, that's basically my question. What do we do?
Žaneta, please.
Thank you very much. Indra, for this question, I was thinking about that as well a lot because I work also with the European Parliament ambassadors' schools in Latvia. And in Latvia, we have 260 secondary schools, and more than 100 is part of this European Parliament ambassadors' school program. And I see here several possible tools which could be actually introduced with assistance of the Commission and also European Parliament. First of all, these could be cross-regional cooperation projects. Erasmus Plus is a good thing, but it's not enough. It has to be something targeted, that you create a financial scheme which support, for instance, cross-regional cooperation, targeting, for instance, disinformation. This would be one of possibilities when young children work together and they actually cooperating together also contribute to those new tools. Another point is that these could be also some financial schemes which are targeted cross-collaboration efforts on community level, where you bring together community. These could be politicians, local politicians, these can be NGOs, these can be schools, yeah? So because community looks as a very, very efficient tool. Another point is, and this is something concrete, what actually those young ambassadors suggested, that it would be important to create a European level platform where those who are interested in AI could propose their ideas. So it would be like a platform, like some kind of area where you can create ideas on the spot. But what is very important, there will be no lack of ideas, but there will be lack of feedback. And therefore, it's very important that somebody stands on the side of either Commission or European Parliament, which says, okay, thank you for that, you can implement there and there and there. But this idea is just fantastic, we will bring that on a European level. And this will be not only this cartoon which we watched, but it would be a real work of young generation which can do. But actually, I have plenty of ideas of how to really push this endeavor, but this has to be done.
Well, thank you. Now some of my ideas. You know, as a former European Commission official, I think that European semester can be used better for, first of all, maintaining dialogue, country-specific dialogue on media literacy, disinformation as a threat, and so on, education. And then for some countries, it can also be part of country-specific recommendations. I think that this, this is not what Žaneta said, but it's sort of making our politicians and ministers and so on, including Minister of Education, to think in this area, to spread best practices and so on in dealing with disinformation and improving education, especially in this field.
And maybe, there are several ways, of course, but I think, first an official one. I think it's really, really good if you have educational content about fake news. You create it in that way that that can freely be used by schools. For instance, we are now thinking of you know what an LLM is, a large language model? If you have an LLM of your own, not ChatGPT, but the one you have on your own, you can fill it with all the data you want. But if you do it right, you can create a massive, massive educational tool. Because then you can ask your own LLM, oh, please, give me, I want to do it now on a Montessori way for the next 2 weeks. Bang. And you have for the coming 2 weeks Montessori lessons at your service. And then you say, maybe I want a new one, and I want self-learning for the coming 3 weeks. And then you tick it, and the LLM gives you, for the first 3 weeks, that kind of, and it helps. That is my thing. If we can make it easier for teachers all around Europe to create the lessons, I know for sure they will going to do it. We have experience with these comic books. When I started this, maybe 12, 13 years ago, everyone was saying, comic books in schools. Jan, how old are you? This is so infantile, it can't be true. And then I said, but maybe if they are really, really attached to it, you don't have to learn them, they would learn themselves because they like it to do. And that was the case. So I think, and that was one of the official one. The unofficial one is, we are trying in this project to create an educational game. And if it's possible to create this kind of educational game and we could play it in an international competition, then it enhances the dialogue between the countries, but also the dialogue about how to deal with this kind of disinformation, because the whole game is about that. But then if you play it in a competition, then you know for sure that on the days of the competition, the dialogue will be about disinformation. So that would be an unofficial one. But I think we have a lot coming, and I think we have to use AI.
Thank you, Jan. I fully agree with you. And we also had some discussions during the AI week here in Brussels that soon AI is also going to have an impact on the education sectors with maybe avatars going to the classroom or the culture sector. And the EU already has many tools and programs, the SERF program, and a lot of expertise on this. But there will be a point where it will be very important to monitor actually what's happening, what is the impact on the formal education, and what are the impacts also on young people, and how to empower them, as Jan says, to not be recipients but actors in this change.
Andris. Yeah, many thanks. Indeed, this is a very good question and pertinent one, because I think me, Professor Ozoliņa, Professor Ijabs can tirelessly go to schools, and we are doing it, to speak about democracy, European values, etc. But there, I think what is important is that we give our feedback on the challenges we feel the schools have to policymakers, through dialogue with the ministry, for example, through dialogue with the, how it's called, the network of subject teachers. Because, for example, when we look at Latvian case, the way you can construct a subject like history is up to you as a teacher in a way. So there, I think our work is very important. And we have some projects there as well with our tiny contribution. Thank you.
Are there any further questions, comments? Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting panel, and actually it was really good to hear from you and about your project and what's going on also in Latvia and other countries. I work in the European Commission. My name is Zbigniew Gniatkowski. We have a newly established Stratcom task force for strategy communication and countering information manipulation. Of course, there are many, many areas and topics we could discuss longer. I believe we are coming to the end of this meeting, but there are some answers in your presentation in terms of people's perception of the problem and the measures, and of course policy measures and closer cooperation, also interinstitutional, whole of the government, the whole of the society approach is crucial. That's why this kind of projects supported by the EU and the Commission specifically are very important. And we didn't mention the European Digital Media Observatory with the hubs and regional hubs in the member states. They also play quite an important role in this resilience building efforts. And one of the answers is, well, we have to build our situation awareness through monitoring, our cooperation, exchanges, but as well we need to be focused on the media literacy in a broader sense, efforts and societal resilience building. We had this Preparedness Union strategy released in March this year. We are working in the institutions on the European Democracy Shield, which will be quite a big chunk of work for the future, not only to safeguard the integrity of the elections, but also to emphasize our joint fight against foreign information manipulation. We didn't talk about this during this session, but of course this is one of main areas in member states and also for the institutions. And of course we need to solve this kind of dilemma, how to balance the fight against disinformation, information manipulation, and we say sometimes, and the freedom of speech expression in the EU, which is always very quite sensitive, especially in some countries. So many thanks for this presentation. I think I have a lot of information we can digest in our team as well, and well, hopefully we will have more contacts in the future. And I understand that your project will be still running for another couple of years. And well, AI is really one of the areas we cannot neglect, and we are very happy to have this AI Act coming into force in the months to come. But anyway, we need to be aware, and there were quite a lot of reference to AI also during this morning sessions of the special committee in the European Parliament on Democracy Shield, also with the Ukrainian counterparts. So a lot of things to digest. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, so let me first of all thank all the panelists for coming, because, we just started to follow this particular project. We will be happy here in the European Parliament also to follow the work in progress, how it will develop, because it's going to be really exciting, especially because all these things are changing so fastly. So your project is going to have an increased relevance, to my mind. I think many of the important topics have been already mentioned. To my mind, what Mr. Kužnieks at the very beginning mentioned, the issue of supply side. Because, of course, we have to be aware of the fact that there is a demand for different kinds of information, including conspiracy theories and so on and so forth. The problem is that how do we here in Europe create a demand of trustworthy how do we create supply of trustworthy AI, for example, because let's be frank, all those large language models that are most often used are not located in the EU. And I think this would be also the task of the European Union to work in that direction, but also to create a supply of quality journalism, which is an increasing problem, especially in smaller member states and smaller languages. We all know that, well, journalism, quality journalism is suffering everywhere. Well, what could be the solutions? I mean, we all know that there are some solutions that have been discussed, like digital tax and issues like that about the big platforms, but this is probably not so easy to solve. And in that sense, I think that there have been very interesting issues mentioned that are very high on the agenda of the European Parliament as well, the digital literacy, starting from the early age. This is, to my mind, really an important thing. This is very much about hygiene, just like we teach kids to be clean, to brush their teeth. In that sense, I think we should also very early on to start teaching them about, well, how do we perceive information? What are the reliable sources? What we shouldn't do? How should we access all possible information critically? And in that sense, I think that the innovative approaches that were just demonstrated are really the right way to proceed because, those boring classes wouldn't help. This is I think, a clear fact to state, and that's why I think there is a lot of room for innovation, also including youngsters teaching themselves in many ways, with hands-on experiences. How do we identify those cases of misinformation? Well, and of course also the technological dimension, which I am looking forward very much to read also and to listen to your project further on, because I think that there are really approaches that should be explored. How do we use AI for both identifying and preventing for disinformation, used for disinformation, because of course there are also many technical problems and conceptual problems. Being a researcher myself, I know what does it mean. How do you define, for example, a conspiracy theory? How do you identify that this particular text or this particular video contains conspiracy theories? This is intuitively we understand what we mean, but if we really want to do that in a proper way, we need a really good definition and a really scientific approach. And in that sense, I think that also from the scientific point of view, the role of AI in debunking disinformation is a very interesting topic, a very challenging topic, because let's be frank, not all of those conceptual issues have been already solved. And let me finish with what also Mr. Gotev mentioned in his speech, that we do not know what would the world look like when the project ends, which is, as far as I understand, in 2.5 years. I think that, never mind, we really don't know that, and we really don't know what are the surprises the AI revolution is preparing for us, but you can be sure that the European Parliament, both in my person and also in the form of my political group, Renew Europe, we are going to follow your project, and you are always kindly welcome here in the European Parliament, both to present and to discuss with us the results and the outcomes of your project. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you very much for the presenters for being here, and thank you very much, Inna, for proposing this wonderful event. Thank you.